Hello and welcome to my dental hygiene school experience. My name is Dax Ska, and each episode I'm going to share my own experience of dental hygiene school. The highs, the lows, the funny, and the real. Thank you for joining me on my journey, and here's another episode right now. What's up, dental nerds? This is Dax Ska. I'm a dental assistant, dental hygiene student, and future hygienist. And today I'm going to be talking about semester 3, week 3, maybe even kind of week 4, because I think I'm losing track of the weeks, and I'm not really sure where I'm at anymore. Anyway, putting all that aside, it's summertime. Yeah, I love summertime, but it's very hot right now. Very, very, very hot. I'm very glad that the school has air conditioning, and I have air conditioning in my car. So that makes it a little more tolerable. Very happy for the sunshine. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining because I feel like in the Pacific Northwest, it never really gets all that warm. So the fact that it is warm now, this is our summer. And I'm sure when the weather goes away, I don't know about some other people, but I will be missing it. So just very glad that it's the weather's nice. Yeah, let me talk about my drive for a second. So, because it's summertime, I can actually tell that the traffic is a little less. I do remember last year, or my first year, when it first started off, it was in June, so same time. Traffic wasn't too bad, and I was like, I can do this commute. And then at some point, I want to say late August, I noticed the traffic get a lot busier. So I'm mentally prepared for that now. And I know that I should really appreciate this time because it's not always going to be like this. So, yeah, and I guess with less people being at work and at school, you see things you don't normally see. For example, I was on my way to school, and it was somewhat early, and I'm pretty sure I saw someone being pulled over and they were doing sobriety tests. And it was the morning. So that was interesting. I don't know. Has anyone else seen anything like that on their way to school or work? Yeah, I just was shocked. I thought, why would someone have to do that? But, I mean, I guess maybe they were driving in a way that warranted pulling them over and testing out that. Anyway, I'm still working at my job. I'm still working 1 day a week. I had 1 week where I actually could work 2 days. And so I sent a text message to my office manager and I said, hey, I'm actually available to work on this day. And the office manager replied and said, oh, yeah, the office is actually closed that day. So, But, it's at this point, it's still worth it for me to keep working. I mean, let's be real, who would rather take the day and study and rest? But, right now, I think this is what I want to do. I don't necessarily want to give up my job at this point. And I also work with some great coworkers. I know I've just bragged on them before, but it's I don't want to just say goodbye to them. I still want to know that I'm going to see them from time to time. So it's just it's just a different kind of pace though, working 1 day a week because it's school, and then all of a sudden it's work, and very different work than school. So, because I have been working there, it's been over a year now, actually. When I am working, it's more like, let me just remember this. It's the information's definitely still there. I still got my routines. When I talk to patients, I have my post-op instructions that I have my spiel that I give them. So, I mean, in a way, it's kind of nice. I don't have to think as hard. But also when I work with a doctor once every other week, or it's been different the past couple weeks. Yeah, it's actually not been too bad considering how little I work with each doctor now. But yeah, I mean, I had great training. They set me up for success. So, talking about school now. Yeah, I mean, school's been good. It's mostly for me been about clinic. I'm still taking the other classes because I want to refresh my memory, and these aren't for grades. These are just to remind me of the information. Um, and I may have talked about this before, but with classes like pharmacology, that one I remember it was very. It's unlike anything else I had studied before, even though it's to do with biology. The information is very. In my mind, I have nothing to attach it to. So it was just kind of bits of information that I had to somehow link together, but it wasn't necessarily logical. Now I'm coming at it from the big picture. And so when the instructor talks about, like, oh, we're going to talk about this drug or this category of drugs, I kind of see the bigger picture and how it all relates together. So it's actually more interesting the second time around because I'm not overwhelmed by all this new information. It's more like, yes, I remember this, and I can see how it would be important in the dental office because after studying pharmacology and then working at my job now, I've seen we talk about bisphosphonates in endodontics because that could influence how we pursue treatment. Um, you know, there's also like other ones like diabetes is a very big one. So if you haven't taken pharmacology yet, just know you want to know a lot about diabetes because it affects how you do treatment. It affects a lot of aspects of what you'll be working with that patient. Also, my perio class, also very interesting. I feel like for the most part I remember it. We actually had, it was an exam. It was the first exam, and I knew it was coming, but I didn't necessarily study for it. And I was like, okay, well, I think that I'll just do it. Like there's really no consequences if I don't do well on it. And after I did the test, I actually felt like I did really well. I don't know my grade yet on it, but I felt pretty confident. Um, yeah, so, I mean, the fact that I didn't study and I feel like I did well just reminds me that the information's still there, and I, I, I got the information. So, anyway, but yeah, it's good to know. Clinic is the big one that I'm focusing on. So I'm working with different patients. So I think I talked about screening appointments, and so those are good to kind of vet your patients to see if they qualify for what you need. So if I need a mod and an LG, and you'll learn about those if you haven't learned about them already, but if you have a mod and LG and you need a light, and then you screen a patient and they turn out to be another mod, well, I mean, obviously you don't want to see them unless there's some other requirement that they would fulfill. So I know, like, we have requirements like, and we have our graduation requirements, which are ones that you can do anytime throughout the program, and then they are the semester requirements. So for our graduation requirements, we have ones that are like you need to see a special needs patient, and what that means is if you have to alter any forms of care. And so, for example, last time around I had a patient with COPD. The patient wasn't able to lie back all the way, so I had to stand and treat the patient that way with the scaling that I did. And so that does count as altering treatment. And so I was able to get a sign off on that one. But yeah, I think that, there's some requirements you can get fulfilled. Like, for example, I have one patient that fulfills the recall requirement, and we do need one of those this semester. So even though that patient may not give me the qualifications that I need for other things, I could still use that patient for recall. Maybe I do bite wings. Like there's a lot of things I can get out of an appointment. You want to make sure you're reviewing your requirements regularly. It sounds like some schools just require that you see a certain number of patients. For my school, it's more you have certain requirements, and so it depends how many. It's up to you how many patients you see, really, as long as you can get all your requirements in. So I think that's I kind of like that aspect of it, because if you can get one patient where they mark off, let's say, 5 requirements, that's going to be a better use of your time than if you see 5 different patients for the same thing. So always look for areas you can double up on. There are some requirements where I have, let's say, an FMX that I need to do, and that's a semester requirement. But there's also, I need to do so many FMXs for my graduation requirements. So you always want to be reviewing your graduation requirements. They used to call them 2-year requirements, but now they're graduation requirements. And then you also want to be reviewing your semester requirements. And so when you're seeing a new patient, you want to be looking at medications. If they have asthma and they need to bring in their inhaler, that can also count as a special needs patient, just because you need to do something to alter your treatment. So that would require having the inhaler within arm's reach in case there's a situation they need to use it. So, it's good to see different situations. So I would say have a good balance of patients. And then for me, even if I get all my requirements, I still need to see patients. So if I'm at the end of the semester, well, let's say I'm 3/4 of the way through the semester, and let's just say I had a really good semester and I got all my requirements, but I still have appointments left. I still need to see more patients. And the good thing about that is I can kind of get started on the next semester requirements, or not the requirements, but starting the patients for next semester. So that way, when I get the requirements for those patients, I can be further along in the process than having to start every patient brand new. So I mean, a clinic is definitely a difficult class, if you want to call it a class. It's definitely challenging. Not only do you have to do certain things, but you also have to do your appointments in a certain order. And I had a situation where I had a patient scheduled. The patient this particular patient has to request time off work. And so for that, kind of have to plan ahead. I didn't find out until the Friday before. Clinic was on Monday. Friday is when I found out that she was not able to get her time off from work. So, of course, they always say have a backup. Well, I contacted my backup. I sent a text message and I said, hey, I have this appointment, and I had let this patient know ahead of time that I may not be able to schedule that patient, so they may be able to fill that spot. Well, when I filled that spot, when I contact that patient, I said like, hey, it looks like I will need you to fill that spot. Are you able to do that? And that was on Saturday, and I kind of left it. Maybe they're busy doing something. I still didn't hear anything on Sunday, so I texted him again. Hey, I didn't hear from you. Can you fill that spot for tomorrow? Still nothing. So when I was in clinic Monday morning, we have our block huddles. Our block is like a group of 5 students with our instructor, so kind of operate as a unit that way. And when I was going over what to expect for my appointments and like what requirements, I said, well, I contacted this patient, but they never actually confirmed. They have not responded, and I explained the whole situation. So I said, I don't know if they're actually going to show up or not. So, of course, we have to wait a certain amount of time before we say, like, okay, never mind. And so I waited till about, 15 minutes after, and then I texted the patient, are you able to still make it? Like, I was okay if the patient showed up late as long as they were there. Still heard nothing. So what we can do if we don't have a patient, we can find 3 screener patients. And if we're able to get 3 of them, then it doesn't count against us. So of course, like I have a lot riding on this. So it was first thing in the morning. There's not really a ton of people there. I went to the student lounge and I was looking for someone. There's literally one person in there, and so I talked to her and I said, "Hey, here's my situation. Can you be a screener patient for me?" And she had class. She had enough time. Like it was over an hour later that she had class, so she's like, "Yeah, I can do that." So I did the screening appointment, got all that done, and one of my other classmates actually, her patient didn't show up either, and so we're both kind of in the same boat. She actually noticed that one of the patients, there was a patient there for an appointment, and I guess there was family members there with two children, and so my classmate was like, "Do your children need? Do you know if they're due for dental appointments?" And the mom's like, "Oh, yeah, they are actually." And she's like, "We've got two openings," and so we were able to see both of them. Once I finished up with my screener appointments, I was able to turn my room around, get it set up. Of course, I haven't seen a patient that is a child in our clinic yet, so I know there's certain rules we have to go by and certain procedures we have to follow. And so it was kind of all thrown together the last minute. It was actually pretty stressful, but thankfully the child was pretty laid back. He wasn't bothered by the fact that I had to do a lot of typing, and even though I asked questions, yeah. And so basically all I got done that day was 2 bite wings, and that's okay because the patient was in the chair, was a patient of record at that point. So I didn't get it didn't count against me for not my patient not showing up. And yeah, I mean, it turned out in the end it was stressful, I'll be honest, very stressful. But hey, I got it done, and it doesn't count against me, so I'm still doing good. So we'll see if my other patient shows up at the next appointment. And something else that it made me realize too is that maybe if this patient isn't responding, is there another way to contact this patient that would be a better option than sending a text message? I know for me it's ideal because, if I'm on break in class and I'm trying to contact a patient, I don't want to have to hope that I get them and then maybe get a voicemail and they call back when I'm in class. Like we just play phone tag, and a little stressful for everyone, I'm sure, especially the student. But yeah, I'm gonna ask him. Maybe he lost his phone, and if you lose your phone and text message is the only way that you're contacting this patient, then yeah, of course they're not going to respond. So, and who knows what the reason is? I don't know. But so I can't be mad at him because he never actually agreed to the appointment. So, when I see him next time, I'm not going to be like, "Hey, jerk," I'm just gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I contacted you. I don't know if you know. Is there another way to contact you? That would be better." So we'll see what happens in the future. But so far, I haven't had any missed appointments. Actually, all my patients are pretty laid back people. And I had one patient where one of my screener patients, and I just wasn't sure how to read the patient. Like, I think the person's just very like analytical, and so not so much of an emotional person. And so I wasn't sure if the patient was like upset because of how long the appointment was. And so I explained like, okay, so each appointment's probably going to be 2.5 to 3 hours, and you're probably going to need several appointments, thinking like delivering bad news. And then he was like, "Oh, okay, it's just like not a big deal," and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm glad that works out." So, yeah, just because someone looks grumpy doesn't mean they are. Some people that's how they operate, which is perfectly fine. Yeah, so anyway, that probably covers like week 3, 4, maybe even 5. Going into week 6, I don't know, we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's kind of a wild ride. We're already actually over week 5 would have been the 1/3 of the way through. So we're getting We're going through quickly. I'm surprised. Anyway, that's all I've got for this week. Y'all take care and think happy thoughts and go for the prize. All right. I'm out. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my podcast. I appreciate your support on this journey, and until next time, I am Dax Ska.